where compared if we compare that to China, like where are they? I mean, they've had the largest economic miracle over the last 30 years, 40 years in human history, right? 800 million people out of poverty into the middle class. From your own from your life there and also from traveling again recently, is this if you compare the mood of people in the working class of China and the United States, I would assume that China must be wonderfully optimistic, right, about the future.
Actually, what's really interesting is that I've noticed two things specifically on this trip that I took the last 6 weeks that have changed a lot just in the last couple of years. So, one of the things that was really interesting is that the safety in China has increased to an even more exceptional level. I mean, you're based in Japan, Pascal. I mean, you know that typically throughout Asia, it's generally very, very safe. Obviously, Japan would be a very, very safe country. But we've started to see something that I would say almost actually mirrors Japan, where on the side of the street, people are parking their motorbikes in China and leaving their keys inside, not taking them out. And then going to, for example, a cafe, a lady putting her handbag down on the counter, or putting a laptop down and then going up to and getting a coffee. This was such a hard thing for me to see because I mean, this is you would never ever would you ever do this in the United States.
And I
You
kid,
couldn't even imagine doing it.
and I kid you not, everybody listening, the same thing happens here. In Tokyo, people leave keys in the ignition and people leave just they use their wallet to reserve a table while they go to the counter to get a coffee.
It's incredible. And so I started talking to people about this, and they say, China has improved so much where it's like it's even safer now. Like it's getting better. Like the safety, like it was safe before. Now it's like ultra safe. It's even more enhanced. And then I was talking to a taxi driver, and I tell you, if you're ever in China and you can speak to the taxi drivers, or if you have a translator, if you're able to speak Chinese, and the taxi drivers are the best, are the most fascinating people to chat with.
Agreed.
So I was talking to him, I was chatting with him, and I said, I'm curious, how much money do you make a month, as a taxi driver? And he said, I make around 6,000 renminbi a month. And this would be around maybe 1,000, just around $1,000 a month. And I said, how is that for you? And he said, 6,000 a month, you can still live a good quality of life here. Am I rich? Of course not. Do I live paycheck to paycheck? Yeah. I mean, I still save a little bit out of that, but like my essentials are covered. And he said, that's the nice thing with China. For example, high-speed internet, right? In the United States, to have high-speed internet in your house, you would be paying the equivalent of, 120, $130 a month to have that inside of your home. In China, I mean, this would be a couple dollars. I mean, it's extremely affordable. You look at your phone. In addition to that, your phone you're paying around 120 to $150 a month. So just on internet in your home and your cell phone, you're probably around $300 a month in the United States. This would literally be maybe $20 in China. So that, yeah, and because the Chinese government said, having high speed internet in 2025, that's basically like a human right. I mean, like you have to have that to survive in 2025. This is a non-negotiable. And so, I think for China's government, they've done a very good job in making the essential part of your life very affordable. And so when you look at the food costs is extremely affordable, you look at public transportation, you look at internet, you look at these basic things, even a taxi driver making $1,000 a month, that is, that you could actually, you'd be amazed. You're probably saving $200-300 a month out of that salary, paying for his place, and then also, doing his daily life and other needs. And so I think what I would definitely say, Pascal, is that, for the lower class, you're actually much more, it's definitely better to be in China than it would be in the United States. And again, I had this discussion with a taxi driver because he's like, yeah, but I mean, I only earn $1,000 equivalent. What do you got? What would a taxi driver make in America? I'm sure it's maybe 5 or 6 times that. I said, it would be 5 or 6 times that, but your expenses, you couldn't believe. I mean, if you're a taxi driver in New York City, how much do you think your rent would be for that? Plus your gas, which is expensive. I mean, all of these costs. Yeah, you could make 6 times more, but your cost of living might be 20 times more. Or it would be significantly more. So I think there's always, a lot of perspective that you need to do, that you need to have. And that's why I think it's so important to travel and see that, because a lot of people in the West that be criticized, that are like, you know what, the average salary in China is $1,000 a month. How can anybody live on that? Well, again, you're kind of using China salary and then applying that to life in America. Yeah, of course, that's never going to, compute. But if you actually understand what the cost of life is in China and how people are living, you're going to be able to see that that actually is a good salary, and that there is a lot of optimism. I mean, when I'm walking the streets in China, I mean, I went to Beijing and Shanghai, Nanjing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong. There's a different mood in the air. I mean, very interesting. What I've noticed as well, Pascal, is a big rise in local brands, local Chinese brands that are really becoming very popular. I'll give you an example. Uniqlo from Japan, very, very popular. Maybe 10 years ago, I mean, I remember the flagship store opened in Shanghai, thousands of people in there trying to, I mean, everybody it's great quality, right? Uniqlo is amazing, good quality stuff, very affordable price. When I went back this time, yeah, there you go. When I went back this time, I saw a new Chinese store called Benlai, and Benlai is essentially the Chinese Uniqlo. It's exactly the same concept. I mean, it looks almost a mirror image, but it's Chinese. And so I went there, and the prices are even better, and the quality is fantastic. So I'm like, wow, like I'm going to buy some shirts here, and I'm going to buy some, workout clothes, and I'm going to buy a bunch of gear from this store. And that store was packed. And so you see a shift that's happening where, when I first went to China in 2007, people would not want to buy Chinese clothes. People would not want to buy Chinese brands, right? I mean, the Adidas, Nike, obviously Apple cell phones. I mean, anything that was West was considered a luxury, and you wanted to have that. It was much more attractive to be wearing the newest Adidas, trainers, as opposed to, the Chinese equivalent. But now you have Chinese brands rising up, and you see this consumer change has changed. And I think a lot of Chinese people, especially the youth, are very patriotic. They're very proud to be Chinese. And I think this is also what Donald Trump's tariffs have done, is that it has actually inspired the younger generation, who are really embracing their roots, embracing their culture, and just saying, I'm very proud to be Chinese. Let's buy Chinese. Let's, build our economy, and let's just do it our way. And if the U.S. wants to play these games, play the games, but we're not going to bow down or be intimidated.
Yeah, I see it. I see it going that way too. I mean, obviously, the success would also breed like pride, justified pride in what you achieve.